So tell me what you need, and tell me where you bleed, and I will listen. I can listen. Oh, I will listen to you.
Hey guys, welcome back to The Truth About Addiction. It has been a minute. Life is busy and in session, and I have a former guest back today, Lauren Clayton, who is going to talk with me back and forth in a way that's a little different from prior episodes because we're going to cover a whole lot of ground and we're kind of going to be interviewing and or getting to know each other equally. It's not just going to be me at the round table wanting to hear her story and digging in and asking those special questions at the end, like I've done with other guests. This is a little more of a conversation that you as the listener get to be attuned to. And it's going to be a really good one. There's going to be a lot of very deep, difficult conversations that we both feel extremely passionate about, and in some ways feel like it's our life purpose to talk about out loud. So hi, Lauren.
Hi, Sam. Yeah. Every time we're on the phone, it's kind of like we should have recorded this. This could be a podcast.
Exactly. And so we finally did.
We finally did it. And actually, before this, we were talking about anxious attachments in relationships and how we both have done that. And that was my primary relationship style, was just be anxiously attached, meet someone. I used to do the serial monogamy thing. So it was just like I always had a boyfriend in romantic relationships. And then, but even with girlfriends, it was just like you had to call me all the time, or like it was just not enough. But especially with and in romantic relationships, it's like, okay, are they going to leave me? What do I do to make them stay? Who do I turn into? Who do I become? How perfect can I be? I'm going to love on you like no one's loved you before, so you don't leave me, type of thing. And that doesn't work because we're not coming from a secure place. And it's taken me a minute, including being an ACA, to realize that I can't have a secure relationship, romantic relationship, or even friendship if I don't feel secure. Like knowing that I'm a really good friend. So if that person wants to be my friend, great. And then if they don't, that's okay. Because as we learn in program, rejection is God's protection. But, when I was deep in my co-dependency disease, not that I'm cured or anything like that, but before I had program, it was just like the blinders were on and I could not. And especially that high you get from a new relationship. And I didn't even know I was using people like to get high like that, but I so was. And I could feel it again. But I just I remember I got to a point in my recovery, but I'm like, I can't get it up. Like I can't, like, I don't get that thing anymore. It's like I have like some kind of like, I don't know, like codependent, dysfunction. I'm like, it's not working like it used to. And it's just I have too many tools, and and which is nice to not have that malignant thing that feels so good in the moment. I remember when I kind of turned the corner with food and binge eating, and it just didn't do anything for me anymore. I'm like, oh, I could actually feel my feelings, or I don't need the food to get high out or numb out or dissociate from. So, but yeah, we were talking a lot about that. And
I want to just, for the people listening, because there's so much that Lauren just said. So when we were talking before this talk, what I had said to her was that I think as of a few days ago, so this is real time shit, I have hit a codependency bottom. Okay. And this means a level of spiritual bankruptcy where I have been engaging in a behavior, in this case, in friendship, in a very specific way that has served me because of the trauma of my childhood, for a very long time. And I very painfully and clearly have realized it is no longer working. And I think obviously the details are different, but what so many people in all of the 12-step programs have in common is often a very chaotic and dysfunctional upbringing. And in my case, my first drug of choice was control. Everything was out of control in my house. So though I was the youngest, wanted to constantly figure out what I could say or do to make everything better, especially to make my mother happy. And so I'm seeing now through a ton of time in program and a lot of therapy that some of this relationship drama is really a subconscious replaying out of my childhood trauma, where I want to stick my claws into certain people. And as you said, love them hard enough so that they'll never leave. Because the worst thing that could ever happen to me as a child is to have my mother leave. And in the case of my mother, it was an emotional absence. It was a level of disappearing, whether it was disappearing from the pills she took and she became somebody else that frightened me, whether it was a disappearing into a deep depression, a disappearing into mania, which was frightening. Whatever it was, I am reliving wanting to try and stop people from disappearing so I can feel safe in the world. Now, first of all, any relationship that comes from that place is, of course, coming from a wounded place, right? And so I am not this 40-year-old woman with all this time sober walking around like a wounded child, but your spiritual work here on earth, in my opinion, is never, ever done, ever done. And so this is like when they say in recovery, the onions, the layers of the onion are peeling back. Yeah. I was extremely physically dependent on cocaine when I first got sober, and that had to subside with enough abstinence. And then I had to clear away, all of the initial junk that was at the very top of the pile, on top of my intuition and my knowing and my sense of loving myself. And so you kind of you knock them down one step at a time, one sponsor at a time. You kind of sift through all the garbage. And it's so there's this well of love and hope and resilience inside of me. And still, there are these very deeply wounded parts of me that are playing out in adulthood, and at the end of the day, don't work and are hurting me. And trying to gain a sense of safety or power or control from somebody else in human form will never, ever, ever work. It will always hurt. It will always disappoint. And I had a codependency bottom many years ago when my marriage was falling apart. And at that time, I had no higher power. My husband was my higher power. And so when that came undone, I literally felt like I was falling through the earth. I had no love for myself, no concern for myself. I had no idea how to take care of myself. I didn't know anything about myself. This bottom is not that. This is much more nuanced. This is very zeroed in on female friendships. And I have compassion for why it's happening when it's happening. I lost my fucking sister to a drug overdose last year. That grief is current. My mother is currently off of her medication, acutely manic, emotionally abusive, out of control. And every day I am not sure if I'm going to get a call that something happened to her like she is dead as a result of making a horrible, dangerous decision, or she's in the hospital again in a psych ward being 5150. I'm walking around wounded like a bleeding young girl in real fucking time. And so I'm not that surprised that I wanted and needed and begged and pleaded, you know, for my friend to love me back the way I think she should have, so I would feel fucking okay in the world, right? That said, I know that what I really want is not anxious attachment. I want secure attachment. And I have a handful of female friendships that are secure attachments. They're not as sexy. They don't give me that fucking high. They don't have the neediness, this old, gross, familiar smell. But they're beautiful and they're stable and they're strong. I have it with my husband. I know how to do it, but I am not practicing it in all of my affairs. And I really want to. This bottom was so beneficial because I don't want that anymore. Even
and that's
though it's so attractive in the beginning.
And I promise you that if you keep doing, I mean, I just, like I said before, I don't even get attracted to it anymore. When people try, I was just dating a guy who was doing all this, and I'm like, okay, it's just like, whatever, I know what this whole thing is. But what I was going to say is, because you kept saying in real time, I'm this little girl. And in ACA, we all we talk about is our sick obsession with abandonment, because people, by the time people get to ACA, they've been in AA and NA and OA and UA and everything. And it's just like, woo, get the numbers out. Okay. And now you're here, because it all kind of does distill, for many people, including me, it does distill down to this sick obsession with abandonment that happened with my caretakers, emotionally, physically, all of the above. And then feeling, and then projecting my feelings and how my parents treated the parts of what I didn't like about my parents and how they treated me. I projected it onto God and my higher power. So I'm like, there you go, abandoning me. And I always had a higher power, but I'm just like, the higher power loves everyone else but me. And the higher power, my God, is ignoring me, and God doesn't care, or just doesn't, or God's going to punish me if I do anything wrong. So either I'm just going to hunker down and be scared, or fuck it and just like live in the shame of, because I'm bad, or, you know. And so having to unpack all of that and realize that my parents were who they are, and they were doing the best that they could with the tools that they had. But in the same time, when I had these anxious attachments, it like these in ACA, we learn that these parts of us, our inner children, our inner 8-year-old, 10-year-old, our inner teenager, the wounded parts like show up. There are real people inside of us. And sometimes it's like you have to say, okay, I'm really getting a high off of this new friendship or new romantic relationship. Which inner child is showing up and like really needing to get something met that she's trying to do through this other person, because it's not going to work and it's going to crash and burn. So what can I do for you? How can I reparent you, little 8-year-old, you know, version of me that needs that comfort, that love, that security, that praise, that, you know, we really needed that as kids, that praise, and just kind of like, you are amazing just because you're you, actually. And so then we don't, one, we stop attracting that. Two, the high just doesn't work anymore. Like I said, I just can't get it up for things like that anymore. I just see through them and I get kind of bored, and sometimes it makes me anxious. And then I distance myself from people that, and it's easier to do with girlfriends. I'm just kind of like, okay, because sometimes with romantic relationships, if there's just like courting involved, I have to be like, okay, let's just step back, and, you know, because it's just easy. It's easier for me to get caught up in that. But yeah, and then I think the next phase is not even attracting that, and then getting that spark or that hit or that real deep sense of intimacy from our secure relationships. That's what, and I did listen to the episode where you talked all about the trajectory of your relationship with your husband. And see, to me, that's true fucking intimacy. I want to, with my friends and a romantic partner, I want like ride or die, like inner circle where I can show up completely as myself, as messy as that is, and as wonderful as that is. And you're going to love me. And then when things aren't compatible or there's a problem, we can talk about it. We can like get in the mess and then keep our sides of the street clean and then hug it out. And then now I have like an even deeper sense of intimacy with you. I mean, I was talking to one of my fellows and I was like, you know what? I got mad at God the other day and I was just like, fuck you, and writing all this stuff. And she was like, good, that's a part of intimacy. Anger is a part of intimacy. And I was like, oh yeah, it just hit different because it's like, I know that with people, but of course it is. And so to have all of those different layers, I think that's where like that real, like divine spark can come from. And I'm worthy of experiencing that.
Absolutely. God, so important, this shit. I think I need to go to ACA meetings more.
I get a lot out of them. Again, you could talk to all these parts of yourself. And then what you were saying before about your mother, and I think before when we were chatting, you were saying like in real time, she's affecting my mental and physical health. And so I've had the same thing with my mother and all of the things that were going on with her, and her, in my mind, refusing to work on herself, and then it gets projected onto me, and sometimes like things would be my fault that I wasn't even aware of, and it was causing so much turmoil that I had to, and I tried everything. This is after trying everything, family therapy, all of these things, and it just was like a no-go. And so I had to make the really difficult decision to, just for today, but it's been a few years, to not have communication with my mother so I could heal physically and emotionally and psychologically and spiritually. I've really gotten closer to my higher power and also through ACA work, realizing that God is not my mom and is not going to treat me like my mom or the parts of, like I said before. So that, and there's so much to grieve in recovery. No one tells you that. Yes, it does get better. Yes, the promises are the promises because they do happen. But a lot of that, as we get healthier, we leave people behind, and like they're just maybe vibrationally, they don't resonate with us as much anymore, or they die, or they get mad because we are not responding to them. We're not doing the whole like codependent, I'm going to be perfect, I'm going to love you, and I will accept breadcrumbs back. We stop doing that. It's not aligned with us anymore. And so we lose people, and it's difficult. It does feel lonely. It does feel like, oh, maybe I should just slip back into that pattern too. Maybe if I just was a little bit more controlling with my mom or did everything perfectly, then no, and then just having that acceptance of my mom, your friends, whoever, have a higher power, and it's not me. Yep. Unfortunately. No, I'm glad it's not me, but it's not me.
No, I that's so important. You just said a lot. And in this interim, I got back from Japan from like the job of my dreams, right? Choreographing for a singer in another fucking country. Okay. Having the time of my life. And I come home to a manic mother who decided it was a good idea to stop taking her meds. And I have been, in the last 4 to 6 weeks, counseled by many, many people who have given many, many suggestions. Well, you could not speak to her, or you could just try to love her. And everything in between,
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, right now, what I have had to do to have my mental health and physical health, as you said, stay intact while I'm actively grieving my mother and my sister, is essentially have no contact. I have had to block her from every social media channel. I kind of gauge each day, depending on how spiritually fit I feel, whether I'm going to block incoming text messages. Because in this state, she is so abusive. I am being blamed for all kinds of things. One of the very common through lines, which is the story of my whole life, is that I don't want her to be happy, because nobody does. And I'm the only living family member she has left. There's nobody on earth that wants her to be happier than I do, literally on earth. And yet, when I hear it, it's this, again, this attack on my young self. And what's actually being kicked up for me when I let any of those messages come in is less that it's knocking me off the self-love beam as a 40-year-old, but more that I have so much sorrow for my young self, because I am really starting to understand the magnitude of what I was trying to hold up as a kid. And talk about grief. And it's not that I don't feel that when I block her, but I have the time and the space to go there and to hold myself and to let myself cry when I am ready, in a state of calm and peace, in an environment that feels good to me. I am not being pulled by these old firing patterns that activate so fast and get me into literally like a sympathetic fight or flight. It's like I can have the grief and be in a parasympathetic state so that it can actually wash up and over me. And I have a shot at maybe healing a part of that inside of me. And you and I are like, one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this back and forth with you is because the first time I ever spoke to you, you were like, rewire this, rewire, rewire. And I'm literally writing a book right now. And the working title is Rewired. We didn't know that about each other, but that we both have this perspective on our work in the world as this beautiful blend of kind of where science meets the soul.
Absolutely. And really, neuroscience is, I think, a scientific way to explain what happens to you, like the spiritual recalibration, so I'm like, great, like, let's talk neuroscience, because if that lands with you, and especially if I'm talking to a client that doesn't have a higher power or thinks like, any type of thing like that is woo woo, it's kind of like, okay, well, some people say energy, but we can use like neurology. That's the same thing. And then, what, ACA might be good also, just to like for your book too. I forgot about that, because in ACA, it's the only program I know where we talk about the nervous system. It's kind of like, okay, this is what's going on. This is where it's lodged in my body, by the way. And this is how we release that. And this is what I'm doing to regulate my nervous system. This is what I'm doing to reprogram it. And and I also want to talk about authenticity, but like it kind of dovetails into this, because when we are young, just like you were saying, this little Samantha that you were grieving, when we grow up in dysfunction or alcohol or any type of dysfunction, we unconsciously learn to don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And so we're rewiring ourselves to talk and trust and feel, and then, eventually trust others. And when we're told don't talk, don't trust, don't feel, we create these neural pathways that say, okay, if you show an authentic emotion, if you talk about or express a need that you'd like to have met, or that actually just needs to be met, if you need to be held or anything like that, it's associated with danger or being unsafe, because you'll either get a lecture about being selfish, or someone might lash out on you, or you could get sexually abused. Something could happen that is unsafe to you when you try to get your needs met or show up as authentically you. So in adult life, we associate that with danger. And I think that's, for me, that's where I've gotten into some, because I'm like, I hit a bottom with romantic relationships and narcissism, and I'm just like, I cannot do this, God. Like, take it away from me. Show me what I'm doing to attract all these narcissists. And but I was playing into it too, like, okay, I'll make a feast out of crumbs. Everything could be all about you, and everything's all about you, then you'll love me more, even though I'm getting resentful for being exhausted on every level. And so it was just this push and pull of trying to get my needs met. And then it's like, oh, I'm still stuck in don't trust, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. And then another part of me is fighting that and wanting to be seen. But the greater unhealed part of me is like, well, no, this is all you know is people that don't allow you to show up. So until you're really comfortable with yourself showing up and have that secure attachment with yourself, then, it's not going to happen.
So, okay. So between my upbringing and losing my sister, which was the absolute moment that whatever shackle I had around my wrist and ankle that was preventing me from living a fully authentic life released. Because I think after every single attempt to help, forget about fix and save, because I gave that up with my sister. Thank God I did not bear the burden of guilt or shame on my back that I could have said or done something any differently to save her life. But my fucking God, did I hope that leading by example would save her life. And it didn't. It didn't. I've watched my mother spend her whole life creating a story that everyone's out to get her. Nobody wants her to be happy. And every time she opens her heart, someone comes in and hurts it. So she builds a stronger fortress around it. And you know what that's resulted in? Sickness. Yep. My mother is sicker than ever. She has resentments from 40 years ago. She's lonely. She doesn't have love in her life. She has no access to self-care, to loving herself, to a real sense of worthiness. She's fucking empty. Okay. I have seen what it is to choose out of being authentically who you are. And that looks like a miserable, lonely life or death.
Yeah.
Okay. So knowing that that has been my lived experience, whatever that took, and I will never say everything happens for a reason. My sister died so that I could be my most authentic self. Bullshit. I call bullshit to that. However, sometimes the gift of the dying is that they give us permission to fully fucking live. And I am learning from that horrific incident that I have no fucking time to waste trying to shut my heart down, trying to pretend to be somebody that I am not, pursuing things that do not bring me joy. I know what I love. I am fortunate to have had to tap into that as a sober woman. I cannot deny things. I cannot pretend things are okay when they're not. And I've known since I was a young girl, at least that dance is a straight shot to joy for me. And I am on a mission to shout out loud whatever I'm learning along the way, what I've learned from all the pain and all the tragedy, all the joy, all the celebration, all the success. I'm just going to shout it out. I want to just tell the truth about my life. I want to show up exactly how I am right now. How I am is a mixture of a big old fucking mess when it comes to my interpersonal relationships, and also a beautiful, strong, confident friend wife, mother, and daughter, even if my mother never fucking thinks so. You know,
Yeah.
I'm both at the same time. And it's not perfect, right? I mean, can I say I'm authentically myself when I'm showing up to relationships and trying to feed off another person and get something from them? Yes. Yes, it is. It's still authentically me, because that's just this very wounded part of me that's trying to get her needs met. And now that I am aware, and now that it's hurt me enough, I am like, oh my God, that too needs more of my attention and more of my time and more of my love and more of my nurturing. And so I'm going to turn toward it, because that's being authentic. That is honoring what is coming up for me. I'm not going to turn away from it. I'm not going to go back and pretend everything is fine. Right. And so, to the best of my ability, you know, yes, I am trying to live authentically in all of my affairs. And I will say, for sure, when it comes to career stuff, I have been planting so many seeds over the last year to year and a half since losing my sister. And I am finally slowing down long enough in a professional sense to watch what is growing and then to follow the call. And to what isn't, to go, okay, that is good information for me. And there's shit popping off, you know, there's some shit popping off. This is not the way I ever went through my life. I was fucking bulldozing. I was like in a dance class, standing in the front, trying my hardest. You will fucking pick me. I am going to be the one to go on tour. It never happened. I was so desperate for it to make me okay. I am already okay. I am more than okay. My life experience has so much to offer other people. So I'm just going to show up and talk about it honestly and see where it fucking takes me.
And that's what we're called to do, is show up and be as authentic as possible. On one of our phone calls, you were like, I'm showing up. I'm just going to be my authentic self. And I don't care about the outcome. And I love the story of like you being like in what the pick me girl or trying to be like. And it's like when we come from a place of desperation and like this needs to happen. And I'm like that whole, it's like we're in resistance with God, universe. We're not allowing it. And it could just come in just so much easier if we release the outcome, because that's trust and faith, right? In ourselves and in a higher power or power greater than ourselves. And then it just fucking flows. It's like, you know, now sometimes I pray, I'm like, just let it fall in my lap. You know, like the struggle, I'm so sick of, I used to think it was so cute to be like, the struggle is real. Like when that, and I'm like, no, it's, I'm not living in that reality anymore. I'm just going to show up. I'm not going to overly concern myself with the outcome, because I just know this much, and the way it could happen is just beyond what my little brain can think, right? And so just again, and that's helped me with like deepen my intimacy with my higher power. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to really put my life in your hands and just show up and do what I need to do, which shows up. I think that my desires are divinely placed. What lights me up, my passions, those are just divinely placed. That's like God giving me the signal. It's like, that's what I want you to do. That's what you came here to do. So, and if it feels aligned, and sometimes it's like good, but uncomfortable, it's like, okay, I'm doing that thing. So I'm just going to show up and continue to do that. And then like what you said about, I don't know if you use the word weaving, but like putting all of these parts together, like, you know, when the wounded part of you shows up, not continuing the pattern, but like looking at it and being like, okay, how can I do this differently? Taking an inventory, doing a step 4 around it, where you're holding resentment, where you need to keep your side of the street clean, where your character defects were showing up. And I do like, to me, character defects are like, it was very helpful to learn that in Al-Anon, but in ACA, I learned that those defects were just like default settings from that my inner children, whatever age I was, that's how they learned to get their needs met. That's the only thing that they had, like I had as an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. And so when my inner teenager flares up and is using some type of default mode or something, some survival mechanism to get her, I'm like, okay, let me tend to that and focus on, and what does she need right now? And then that's how we become like integrated. So being in your integrity isn't just like, this is my set of values and I'm in line with, it's not like that rigid. It's about taking these messy parts and healing them and transmuting that energy into like who I really am and integrating it like in these shadow pieces of ourselves. Like, and then looking at our monsters, looking at the grimiest, like quote unquote, most shameful parts, or what we're projecting shame or fear or whatever around, looking at all of those, putting them in the light, seeing where they came from, what inner child is weeping and wounded because of that, and tending to that, and then integrating it into so we're not unconsciously, running around getting high off of people or whatever else we try to do, food, sex, all of it. We can be completely integrated. And then that's where my whole goal is, like, for my baseline, my base state to be peace. Because it was just, my base state was chaos, uncertainty, what could happen at any moment, not sure, like a lot of instability. I've been having this big theme around stability come up because like I just ended a relationship that was just so unstable right under the surface. And I'm like, why is this happening? Like, and so I'm like, okay, if I'm attracting that, where do I need to become more stable and feel more secure? And so I'm always trying to return to this baseline of peace and creating that for myself, my inner family, everyone, but also for, the other people in my life, for my clients, of course. So
I know we talked about the promises. You mentioned them a little earlier.
Yeah.
So can we just explain and then even read a little bit about what those are as outlined in the 12-step programs? And by the way, they do have a slight change in language from program to program. So some of the words in ACA in the promises are slightly different than in AA or Al-Anon, for example, but the overall sense of what is essentially promised to you by work a 12-step program is the same. And so we want to kind of get into them and just talk about kind of what they mean to us, I think, a little bit.
They are, so the promises that I'm most familiar with are AA promises, Al-Anon, the Al-Anon and the ACA ones. I have the ACA ones pulled up, but in Al-Anon, and when you were talking, Sam, I really heard you living this and it's one of my favorite promises, is that we will be able to know and understand the vastness of all of our emotions without being a slave to any of them. That's one of the promises. And so in Al-Anon, but in ACA, even the serenity prayer, it's God, grant us the serenity to accept the people we cannot change, and the courage to change the one that we can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. So even the prayer is a little different because we got to keep the focus on ourselves. But the ACA promises are: we will discover our real identities by loving and accepting ourselves. Our self-esteem will increase as we give others approval, as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. Fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. And that's also like not just parents, like work, co-work, like any authority figures. The ability to share intimacy grows inside of us. As we face our abandonment issues, we will be attracted by strengths and become more tolerant of weaknesses. We will enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. We will learn how to play and have fun in our lives. We will choose to love people who can love we will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. Interesting that I'm stumbling over that one. I'm like, am I hallucinating? Healthy boundaries and limits will become easier for us to set. Fears of failure and success will leave us as we intuitively make healthier choices. With the help of ACA support group, our ACA support group, we slowly release our dysfunctional behaviors. And then last one is: gradually, with the help of our higher power, we will learn to expect the best and get it. That's my favorite one.
Amazing. Can I read the AA promises?
Yes.
And let's kind of go into like, whatever we want to say about them.
Yeah.
I think, well, first of all, when I was new in recovery and I heard this shit, I was like, is this a fucking joke?
Yeah.
Can someone just
Right.
promise that like by the end of the 12 steps, I can drink like a normal fucking person and get on with my life? Like, it was so fluffy and it felt so far away and it made no sense to me whatsoever. Meanwhile, now, 14 years later on a spiritual path, I'm like, oh my God, these promises are amazing.
Right?
Oh my God. I mean, it's just incredible how the meaning changes. Okay. So the AA promises, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. And that means halfway through the steps, essentially sort of alluding to the fact that, because the fourth step is taking a moral inventory and really examining your resentments, and maybe for the first time in your life, examining your part in your own anger, there is a freedom and an access to real power that you start to gain. That could be the first time in your whole life that you ever had that. So that's what they're implying there. Before we are halfway through, we are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. You will not walk around with shame on your back, because you're going to use whatever made you feel ashamed to extend your hand and pull somebody out of their own shipwreck.
Absolutely.
That's how you start to release your shame. You talk about it honestly and you help somebody else. The feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. Not forever, by the way. It'll come back, but it can go away. It can go away. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Not always, but it's possible. Okay. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. And again, this sounded a little bit like magic to me. Like I imagined that these people in these rooms believed that some strange mystical creature with a white beard with a wand was above their head, like a Harry Potter situation, going habada beebada babada boop, and then just whoosh, fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave. I
Yeah.
don't have any financial fear for the rest of my life. Okay, so it sounded so fucking bogus to me, and really, it's a promise that this stuff is available to us, that we don't have to actually live in constant fear and anxiety and shame and worry and regret, right? It's human to feel these things. They're going to come up, but that we actually have a way to work through them so we don't live in that space. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. I think that is one of my absolute most favorite lines in the promises. And the last one is, we will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And I would say, again, in the beginning, because I absolutely despised the concept of God, so that shit really turned me off when I heard it. It also felt like first of all, AA felt like a religious cult, but that language just felt like a bypass. Like, oh, okay, here you go, God. Like you can handle this shit now. Thanks. Which really now, what I understand that line to mean is that if my purpose in recovery, and I think this gets lost a lot when we talk about turning our will in our lives over to the care of God as we understand him or her or it or she or whatever. Okay. It's not life, and navigating really difficult things in life is not a matter of just turning over. What I've come to understand, and the book talks about this, is that it is the alignment of your will, your beautiful intellect, your beautiful God-given ambition, your intuition. It is the lining up of those things with something that you maybe cannot see or feel or touch or know completely, something greater. So leaving space for something more expansive than what your small mind is imagining, right? But it's the coupling of the two where all of the magic happens. And so the realizing, for example, this codependency bottom, right? If I go full circle back to the beginning of this conversation, there's 1,000 ways I can look at this, okay? But if I read that last promise and I think of it in that way, is it possible that this friendship imploding, and who knows where it's going to go, if it will find its footing again, it's definitely going to look different if it does, if we never speak again, which I don't foresee, but you know, whatever. Is it possible that God has a part to play in this, that something's happening to me and for me that, left to my own devices, I might not have done on my own? And in this case, I have this crash, okay? I have this deep, painful situation. I could turn away from God completely if I'm not in my program and I'm in my will only, and I could say, I don't fucking care. I want to go back to this thing because it feels really good and it feels like something I absolutely need, or I'm not going to be okay. Okay, I could do that. And it's going to result in pain again. Or I could turn it over to God and say, I don't know, something's going to happen. I just don't know what it is. And I could sit and I could just wait and turn it over to something without doing any kind of actionable work. Or I could try to line them up. Okay, wait a second. Something just happened that triggered some really deep stuff inside of me that I'm pretty sure needs tending to.
Yes.
So, as much as I hated that it happened, I'm going to take it as an opportunity to get out of a dysfunctional pattern, which is not my God-given pattern. Whatever higher power I believe in does not want me to be operating from trauma and chaos. Okay. When I was a child, before anything in the world hurt me, I was perfect. I was untethered, untouched. I was perfect. God made, God given, right? Whatever that means, divine. And then things fucking happen that corrode the divinity. And so if I believe that I deserve healthy, loving relationships, if my idea of a higher power is that I am living in peace, not necessarily even happiness, but that I'm living in peace and stability, and I'm looking out for my health, and I'm loving myself and I'm loving others from a place of worthiness, then I need to take this situation and go, man, I don't know if I was doing a lot of those things in this friendship. I want to examine that. I want to figure out how I can have a more God-centered approach in my friendships, so that it doesn't come from a place of neediness or control or power. And it just really comes from a place of genuine love with very little expectation, where I'm not trying to fix and control and manage and make somebody something that they'll never be able to be. And, you know, who would ever know, right? That the last promise would ever mean something like that to me now, but that's what it means to me now.
But that is truly churning it over, to your point. And it also circles back to what we're saying about releasing the outcome. That's control and managing and even mothering, like in martyr, like all of that. So we want to stay away from the 4Ms, or so we're just doing our part and working the steps, or working like I don't know if you've ever gotten the suggestion to do a mini 12 step around a situation. So it's like, okay, how are you powerless over your friendship with, or list everything in the situation that you're powerless over. And I did one about something recently, and it was like, I'm powerless over my childhood trauma. I'm powerless over my sick obsession with abandonment. I'm powerless over them. I'm powerless over their addiction. So I listed everything I'm powerless over. Then who could I turn it over to? And then or what is the power, like all of the steps, like all the way through. And it's very healing, and so doing the little mini inventory in between, but that is our part. We're called to show up and do our part, and then that is it. And then we turn it over. But I remember when my second Al-Anon sponsor, like I would be calling about things and I'm so upset. And then she's just like, just let God do your day for you. Just give it to God. I'm like, what the fuck is this bitch talking about? Like, what are you talking about? That is so like lazy. That is not like, okay, God, let me just do my day for me. What does that mean? I don't even understand. Like I was just so deep in my control and feeling like I was defective and I was doing something wrong, so I needed to fix it, and not even understanding really like what step 3 meant. And then, which correlates with 6 and 7, it's kind of like, I'm really ready to let this go, and then we're also called to do that. We have free will, so we have to be willing to let go of the character defects and willing to go like, okay, I can trade in this temporary high for true intimacy and stability and security, because I didn't experience stability and security with my primary caregivers a lot of the times, or just in general. I didn't have, but I know that it exists. I know that God wants that for me. So I can let go of this whatever, like sexy thing in the beginning for real intimacy and peace and security. I don't know what that completely looks like, but I have to trust. I have to turn it over and trust and let go and be shown that. It's completely new to me. So it's like I can't control what that looks like. And that's where the whole thing about letting go of the outcome, so we can experience something we've never experienced before on a different, a higher and better level that's more aligned and merged with a higher power. Mm-hmm. God, whatever you want to call it, your higher power.
Yeah. And I think like, the nice thing about some time on a healing journey, whatever that might be for whoever's listening, is that you start, I call them sober reference points, but you start to have, you can call them spiritual reference points, right? Of how these things can play out when you are really sort of aligning your will with that of a higher powers. And, one example from my past, and I've shared about this, and then I'll take like a super current example, is, with my husband, when I found out he was having an affair, I was sure, 99.9% sure that I was apt, like divorce papers filed and got my own apartment, started dating, the whole thing. And then there was like this moment where my intuition was like, are you sure you're done? And, now it's been like 10 years. Okay. From that moment, we're still married. We have 2 children. We live in this big ass fucking house on half an acre, in Thousand Oaks. We're financially secure. I mean, not to say I had no idea, okay, what trying to make it work again was going to entail. And frankly, I'm glad I didn't, because if I did, I might not have tried, because it was excruciating for many, many years, the thawing out from that level of betrayal. But you could never have told me that it would be this good. The level of deep fucking love that we have, deep camaraderie, our beautiful, healthy children, our beautiful house. We came from no money, both of us. We don't have a fucking clue how to save, how to grow wealth. We've got that. You could never. I had no fucking sense of what it could be. And that's that part of like, I'm going to trust the voice that's saying you might need to stay, but put my goddamn hands up because I don't know what the fuck this is going to look like 5 or 10 years from now. I don't even know if we're still going to be together, despite my best efforts, right? And then a current example is the choreography gig, which I alluded to earlier. And that is Woofy, by the way, who my children named.
Oh,
We rescued Woofy, for all of those who hear this terrier in the background, from an intersection he was running across. And the dog did not make a sound for like 3 weeks. He was so scared of us. We tried to find his owner. He didn't have a chip. He became our dog. And finally, when we said to the kids, like, what do you want to call him? They called him Woofy. And it turns out he has the shrilliest bark on the planet Earth. So the name was divinely chosen for him. Good job, Woofy, for participating in
well, you created a safe space for him so his inner children could come out and he could express his authenticity. Because there's so much safety and stability and love now. Good for you.
Fucking amazing. Way to pull that all together, Lauren. So the current day example, right, of like this kind of lining up like will and higher power and then letting go is how the choreography job came to be, which is that I was working out at a gym when I moved to Thousand Oaks. That gym ended up closing. And I was like, shit. And I tried to join some other gym and I didn't really like it. And I was kind of avoiding joining Equinox because it's expensive, but I was like, ugh, fuck it. Like I work out almost every day. It's a good investment. So I joined Equinox. I wasn't paying attention to, the classes that they have. I usually don't take classes. And one day there was this dance class and I was like, huh. So I went in and then the next week I went back and the teacher was like, I'm really sorry to say this, you guys, but I'm leaving for a few months because they promoted me to general manager. I mean, not general, whatever, the fitness manager at a different location, which means I will not be teaching this class. We're actively looking for a teacher. And I was like, okay, I have taught dance forever. I was not actively teaching dance, nor did I have any desire to teach dance at a gym. And I hate to say that, but like 20 years ago, I taught dance at Gold's Gym in New York City. And I was like, that shit's for the amateurs. Like I teach at fucking studios now, but my hand just went up.
Mm-hmm.
And she spoke to me after and she said, that's so funny because like the general manager was already like, who is that chick in your class? And I'm like, huh? She's like, yeah, he saw a video that we put up from last week and he was wondering, who you were. I'm going to see if we can like fast track you and get you on board. So then turns out in 2 weeks, I'm teaching now this one dance class at Equinox, which by the way, I still teach in the suburbs. Okay. But now my membership is free. And I'm like, this is awesome, right? I'm like teaching dance again. And, blah, blah, blah. And then weeks and weeks into me teaching, I'm halfway through a class and this strange man who I'd never seen before with bleach blonde hair was standing outside of the room, kind of like curiously looking at the class. And I'm like, this motherfucker better not just fucking walk into the class halfway through and think, sure enough, opens the door. And I was like, just pretending I don't, I'm acting all fine. Like dance etiquette 101 people show up on time, first of all. But second of all, I'm like, either he's a fool and has just no clue, or he's like a diva and he's going to kill it and be super good. And that's what happened. He was really good. After the class, I was like, who are you? Where did you come from? I have never seen you before. And so he introduces himself. He's a singer. He's been in the music industry forever. And then right away, I do what I do. I take action. This is something I've naturally always done. I have like a fearlessness around sort of asking for something that I don't have, because I feel like if you don't get it, you didn't have it anyway, so you have nothing to lose. And I said, do you have a choreographer right now? Are you working with them? He's like, actually, I don't. And I said, well, I'd love to go to coffee with you and just kind of hear about your career and what your goals are and just see if we hit it off, if we have good chemistry. And so that's what we did. And that went really well. And then I thought to myself, is there anything else I can do? And the answer was yes, I can make some choreography up for one of his songs and put it in front of him, after which there is nothing I can do. because he's either going to like it or he's not. But that's what I did. I said, do you mind if I make up some counts of 8 to one of your songs and just show you what I can do? And he was like, sure. Right. I mean, what does he care? So that's what I do. And he was like, you're hired. And I didn't know what that meant exactly, but what it ended up turning into was, you know, he had a show coming up in LA. We've since had multiple shows. And he was also going to Japan for a 2-week tour. At first, he was not really interested in like bringing on a choreographer and but I gained his trust, you know, by just fucking being who I am. And he was like, yeah, I want you to come to Japan. And so I got to go to Japan as somebody's choreographer at 40 years old. I did not put an ounce of struggle in that suit, right? I certainly put effort. I took action. I was authentically myself. Everything about me, even meeting him and teaching that class, was just so effortless. But I didn't have a fucking stranglehold. I didn't need anything to happen or not happen. I brought my talent. I brought my passion and love for dance, and I brought my ambition and my willingness to try to be vulnerable enough to put my work in front of somebody else, even if they're going to reject it. That's what I brought. And then everything else was hands up. And so these, like, there are these reference points, you know, that we get to collect, even when some other shit might be hitting the fan, where it's like, fuck, those were like the special ingredients where it felt really good all throughout the process. And I brought the best parts of myself to the table. And then I trusted in whatever, higher power, God, universe, source, energy.
Yeah.
She, it, they, them. I mean, and I just trusted that whatever is going to happen was going to happen regardless of what I did or didn't do. And that whatever was going to happen was going to be okay.
And that is how the promises manifest in your life, is that trust piece. And we are not taught to trust anyone, right? Because we're just so self-reliant and self-sufficient. But when we can get to that place and let go and surrender, you know, and different spiritual practices call it different things, between letting go and surrendering, or faith, or turning it over, as we say in 12-step. When you can do that, everything that you're wanting will just come, it will flow to you. When I first did step 11, I realized that beneath the prayer and meditation, for me, like, I don't know, I just had this like download that really, for me, step 11 is about being in flow, letting myself being guided by the universe or source. I tend to call God source. I'm just saying God for, you know, the sake of this, but like, because my higher power is the source of everything. It doesn't come from me, my willingness, or trying to like really force a situation, or it's not dependent on any friend or boyfriend that I'm making a higher power. None of that. It's when I'm in flow and in alignment, which is just following your desires. You wanted to go to a dance class. You wanted to work out every day. And then it just fell in your lap, basically. Or that's what ostensibly it looks like, but you were aligned with your higher power.
Yep. Yeah.
That's how we do that. And then also the other piece is showing up, just completely being you. And that, I feel like, from what you've told me about your life, and it really, I know it happened with, you know, getting back together with your husband, there was these different layers, and it will continue to evolve, right? Like, we're just continuing to become more and more who we are, and more merged with our higher power. But it was like you said it in a certain way, but you just broke through in another way when your sister died. It's like, I'm not available to be anything but myself. I'm not available to do anything except for what my calling is. And that's what I do love about bottoms, as painful as they are. It's like, it really is kind of like, okay, who am I? You're recovering. When we're in recovery, we are recovering who we are, who we abandoned, who we left behind. And, you know, I had a really bad bottom and I was only in Al-Anon at the time. But when I broke up with kind of the guy that brought me into Al-Anon, and I only went to Al-Anon to be like, oh, look what an amazing girlfriend I am. I was just like, these people are fucking weird. And he was like, oh, did you go to, I'm like, oh my God, I went to a meeting of all the literature and I do all these things. And like, but I was just performing for him, but I kept going back because I did something but then it kind of like saved my life in a way because I was in the depths of despair. I hit this big Al-Anon. I'm like, who the fuck am I? What the fuck am I doing? And why do I think that this relationship that I knew wasn't sustainable? Why am I feeling like I'm going to die? Like, where am I? And so it did help me recover myself and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. And that's when I started my YouTube channel and really expanded my private practice. And, sometimes we need that thing. We need that like heat to open up the seed so we can, populate the forest. And unfortunately we need that sometimes. As much as I freaking hate that pressure makes diamonds and but that is like our nature sometimes is that we need to like have that thing. And one of my prayers is I want to thrive in peace. I don't know, somewhere along the way, I'm just kind of like, I want to thrive. I want to reach these new layers from a state of peace and complete God consciousness, not having to hit these bottoms all the time. Cause I'm like, okay, mom's tired. I don't know if I can, I just want it to be fun and easy. I'm like, I promise I won't be in my default behaviors if we could just, do some evolution without all the drama. So, which I do think is possible. Like part of my brain is just like, no, you have to suffer to get a little bit of, and that's what I learned. And I think a lot of ACA people have learned. It's like that everything is transactional. So I have to be amazing and do all these great things to get a little monicum of, and so I've treated my higher power like that. I'm like, okay, I'll just be perfect if I could just have a little bit. And it's like, no, I just need to show up and be myself, and then the world is nice. And it's not, so I don't need to suffer. I don't need to, and I did growing up for sure. I needed to suffer and all this, whatever, just to get a little bit of something good that could be taken away. And, overly proving myself and chasing and all of those like just rigid behaviors that are not God aligned at all. And it's like, okay, I'm going to surrender all of that. That was my only source of control. Or feeling like I could get anything, love, money, anything so I'm going to let that go and completely trust. And I'm going to actually get my needs met from a place of peace and not chaos. And I'm going to live my best life and like all of the promises from a place of peace and chaos and like moments of joy and bliss as well. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
What a good conversation.
The currency does not have to be struggle or me overly performing, because that was my currency all the time. And God is like not accepting that. So I don't need to do that. Like I just have to be me. So, and this isn't, I know it sounds like I'm just, I know this logically and I'm still integrating it emotionally and spiritually every minute of every day, all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's so much of the work, it's like the connecting integrating is the perfect word. And I do feel this moment in this codependency bottom feels like a place I am not yet fully integrated. Whereas there are so many other parts of my life where I really feel I am on the path for my life's purpose, fully fucking integrated, that all these little bits and pieces are like just so because and I'm where I'm supposed to be with all of that. And it's a real journey from your head to your heart.
Yeah.
I meet people all the time who know a whole lot up here. And my God, it's beautiful to be smart and cerebral, but it will not save you. You connect your head with your heart. There's no real shot at the kinds of promises we're talking about, like peace and real deep love and true intimacy. There is no real shot if you're not connecting your head with your heart.
And
space.
And I will say for me, this is an opportunity, this conversation, I mean, and just who you are as a human, Sam, is I always feel like I can be in my heart. I feel seen by you. I remember like we had this one conversation when I was like dating this guy, and it was like he had to go. Like it was like everything was just like, but you know, I think like that codependent part of me wanted to just be like either try to like prove my like how good I was, but also I also wanted to do this thing where I'm like, I'm gonna dump you and make you feel so like, and it just like whatever, like he knows I'm great, he knows he's not, whatever, I didn't need to do any of that. But whenever I do speak with you, I do feel like I could, like it's safe to be in my heart space, and I feel very seen, and then my head and my heart can connect. So what I'm saying, but what's in between and what I'm saying is actually coming from both of those, like the awareness, but like my real essence can show up. And I hope that I do that for you too, because I very much appreciate that about you and our friendship.
Well, that means so much, especially on the heels of being told so many things, you know, that I had no idea this person was thinking about me that were not particularly kind. I do feel that way about our friendship too. I feel like it's so natural, and you know, it's funny because we have all the ingredients with what we've been through to have it be a crazy unhealthy codependent friendship. Yeah. And it just hasn't, you know, knock on wood. I think we're too self-aware. We could just like listen to this podcast 18 times and be like, oh shit. You know, it's not going down that road. It's like we are, for some reason, you know, both able to show up how we really want to show up, and then be seen and heard and loved the way we really want to be seen and heard and loved with each other. It's so special, and it's hard to come by. It's hard to come by. So I feel the absolute same way with you.
Okay. I agree about everything, but I have this new thing where I'm going to stop saying it's hard to come by, because I also know that the most abundant thing in the universe is love. And I read that a long time ago, and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And now as I continue to do this work, it's the most, but my channel, or my ability to like open up and receive that gets to expand. But the abundant, like it's just like air. And I've heard this about money too. Money is air. So I've had this thing about like love and money being the most abundant resources in the universe that are available to me. And I just think that our friendship is an example of that. And also my willingness to just be vulnerable. So for me, that's what it is for me. So I do think that you're rare. No one is you. And I love and appreciate you for that. But I get to have so much love and amazing friendships everywhere.
I love that reframing. Like, fuck yes. Did you guys hear that? Love and money, real friendship and true intimacy are not necessarily hard to come by. That maybe that is another conditioned belief that we have, that maybe actually they're wildly abundant, and only when we are tapped in and ready to receive it do we see that it's absolutely everywhere.
It is. And I do that with work opportunities. I kind of like just declared, I'm like, I only have soulmate clients now, like clients that I'm like, because those are the best sessions for me. And so all of a sudden, the ones that just weren't, like it wasn't working, they dropped off. And then I just got all these like inquiries seemingly out of nowhere, but I just kind of, it's like, I'm available for this and not that, but they have to be soulmate, completely aligned clients. And you could feel the love, you could feel the energy. All my clients are fucking rocking right now. I mean, in terms of like living, even if they're not in program, living out the promises, just complete turnaround. So, and that's not just me. It's like them doing the work, obviously, but yeah, I'm just only available for that alignment now.
Love that. Thank you for teaching me so much every time I talk to you.
Thank you for teaching me so much. And thank you for allowing me to be seen and be vulnerable and just be me. Thank you for that. I love that about you. I love so much about you, but
well,
I love our Barbie and Ken nails, by the way.
I cannot. If you guys are watching this and you can see us, we have this exact same like almond shape. By the way, I just had that color though. And then every human on earth was like, is that for the Barbie movie? And I was like, no, it's really like hot pink, but now I have this like teal, I don't know what it is, bright blue. So we are full
Love
Barbie and Kenning it, or Barbie and Barbieing it. We are for sure going to be doing more of this. So this was like a little bit of a experiment for her and I to just have a conversation, not have a sort of a loose framework and not know exactly where it was going to go, and just see how it feels to the two of us. So of course, Lauren and I will be talking privately, not on the podcast, about all of this. But, you know, if you're listening and you enjoy this, let us know. Okay. My social media is Strong Heart Fitness, and it's one word, HARTE is how you spell heart. So you can message me there. Obviously, you can just subscribe to the podcast and keep listening. There's a handful of other episodes before this one. And then Lauren will tell you how to get in touch with her.
My Instagram handle is mental health hacker. And it's also the one Threads, TikTok I'm on. But yeah, those are my primary, and of course, YouTube. But I respond fastest to mental health hacker on Instagram. So find me there. Let's chat.
Woohoo! Okay. This was amazing. It literally made my day
Yes.
a lot better. I was having a good day. So now it's, I think, a great day. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you for being you, Sam.
Thank you for being you. And we'll talk really soon.
Talk soon.
Okay. Bye, babe.
I wanna help you, but I don't know how. I wanna guide you, but I can't figure it out. So tell me what you need, and tell me where you bleed, and I will listen. I can listen. Oh, I will listen to you. You seem so stuck there, holding on to some old story, still going strong. So tell me what you did, and tell me how you lived, and I will listen. I can listen. Oh, I will listen to you. Where can you go now? Can I keep you from falling down? If you just keep floating, you won't drown. There's a knowing that can be found if you listen. Can you listen? Oh, I will listen to you. There's a voice deep inside you that will be there to guide you. So tell me, what do you hear? Can you quiet your worst fear if you listen? Can you listen? Oh, I will listen to you. Where can you go now? Can I keep you from falling down? If you just keep floating, you won't drown. There's a knowing that can be found if you listen. I can listen. Oh, I will listen to you. I wanna help you, but I don't know how. I wanna guide you, but I can't figure it out.